All right, today we are diving into a really chilling true story, and this one comes straight from Jaipur in Rajasthan. It's a story about a young woman, a brand new apartment, and an ancient evil that honestly should have just stayed buried.
I want you to just picture this for a second. You've just moved to a whole new city. You've scored a great apartment, and you are so ready to start this new chapter of your life. But what if that amazing new beginning is actually the start of a truly terrifying end?
Okay, so our story kicks off with a 22-year-old named Ananya. She's just moved from her small town to the big, bustling city of Jaipur for a new job. And, like anyone new to a city, the first thing she needed was a place to live. And she found one. A place that seemed, well, almost too good to be true.
Right off the bat, there were some major red flags. I mean, the flat was suspiciously cheap and super close to her office. The people in the building, kind of weird. They would just stare at her whenever she passed by. And even stranger, not a single one of the domestic helpers from the society was willing to work in her apartment. Ananya totally noticed all this, but hey, the convenience was just too good to pass up. So she did what a lot of us might do. She just decided to ignore the warnings.
Well, it wasn't long before that feeling of strangeness moved from the neighbors outside to something inside her own home. Something she couldn't see, but something that others could definitely hear.
So one night she's on the phone with her friend Mira, and the question just comes out of nowhere. Mira's like, hey, where is that sound of a child crying coming from? She could hear it clear as day. Anya, though, she listened really hard, but she heard nothing, just absolute silence. She brushed it off, but this was only the beginning.
And as the days went by, it just kept happening. Seriously, anyone who called Ananya late at night would ask the exact same question. They all heard it. That distinct, totally heartbreaking sound of a small child weeping. But here's the crucial part. Ananya never heard a thing. Not once. It was almost like the sound only existed on the other end of the phone line.
So, that's the real mystery here, isn't it? If there's a child crying in her apartment, why is she the only one who's completely deaf to it? Well, that was about to change, in the most terrifying way you can imagine. Because one night, the haunting stopped being just some distant sound on a phone line, and it became a direct, horrifying confrontation. And this encounter, it was about to unravel the truly dark and twisted history of her new home.
So picture this. She's fast asleep when this sound just jolts her awake. It's loud, it's clear, and it is undeniably inside her apartment. The crying of a small child. But the second she opens her eyes, it stops. Dead silence. And then, a soft giggle. She looks towards the sound and she sees him. A tiny little child hiding behind her bedroom door, who then just darts away.
Ananya, of course, chases after him, but there's no one. The flat is completely empty. But when she goes back to her room, she sees it, the proof. Right there on her mirror were these tiny red handprints. And when she got a closer look, she realized that red wasn't paint. No, it was blood. Completely terrified, she finally talks to her neighbors, and the building's dark history just comes flooding out. They tell her all about the previous tenant, an old woman who practiced black magic. Apparently, right after she arrived, this sort of curse just fell over all the residents. Good news would immediately turn into tragedy. This woman started luring children into her home and was even seen digging up a corpse from a nearby cemetery. Can you imagine? The horror really peaked when the society secretary, who finally confronted her, was found murdered, his body covered in what looked like childlike scratch marks. After the residents finally forced her out, they made one last horrifying discovery inside that flat: a child's skeleton. The neighbors actually mentioned a name for this thing. They called it a kachakolwa. Completely shaken, Ananya did what any of us would do. She went online to try and figure out exactly what in the world she was dealing with. And this, right here, is where the story dives deep into a really specific and very unsettling corner of Indian folklore. See, a kachakalva is the spirit of an infant who dies before their first birthday. In a lot of traditions, infants aren't cremated, they're buried. And this practice, which is, born from such tragedy, actually makes their graves a target for people who practice the dark arts, people who twist that profound grief into something truly malevolent. The process for creating one is just horrifying. It starts with the tragic death and burial of an infant. Then a black magic user, a tantric, digs up the body,
A dark ritual is performed over the corpse to trap and enslave the child's spirit. It essentially turns it into a malevolent servant. It's this belief that's rooted in the idea of capturing an innocent soul before it's even had a chance to live, and then forcing it to serve some dark, twisted purpose.
So, just as Ananya is reading all this, absolutely horrified by the realization of what was likely living in her apartment, her final night of terror began.
Suddenly, bam! The power goes out. She's plunged into total darkness, and the silence that followed was just heavy, oppressive. And then the attack began.
Ananya just couldn't breathe. It felt like an invisible force was wrapped around her throat, literally choking the life out of her. She's stumbling through the dark, trying to get to the kitchen, desperate for a glass of water, just gasping for air.
As she's fumbling around in the kitchen, she catches her reflection in the dark window pane. And there, wrapped around her own throat, were the faint but absolutely undeniable marks of tiny fingers, the proof that this attack was real. And just then, a loud cry echoes from her bedroom. She cautiously starts to walk back, her eyes just scanning the darkness, and that's when she saw it. High above her, from the very top of her cupboard, two small hands slowly crept into view. And then, the face. It was a child's face, but its body was rotted and decayed. It had these razor-sharp teeth and long black nails. This creature looked right at her, broke into this absolutely sickening smile, and then it leaped.
Anyanya just screamed and ran for her life. She slammed the door behind her, bolted for the lift. It's out of order. She starts banging on her neighbor's door, screaming for help, but nobody answers. As she runs for the stairs, she sees the creature emerging from her flat, crawling towards her. She finally makes it down to the main gate where the security guard sees her and, assumes there's an intruder in the building. He bravely runs up towards her flat. A few moments later, Anyanya heard his blood-curdling scream and then the sickening thud as his body was thrown from her balcony.
So the next morning, a priest came and confirmed it. The flat was possessed by a dangerous entity. Anya left immediately, and you can bet she never looked back. That apartment was sealed, permanently locked up, never to be lived in again. And while Anya was physically safe, the memory of that night and her terror of a child's cry, well, that still haunts her to this very day. And that leaves all of us with one final, pretty chilling thought. I mean, sure, they sealed the doors and windows of that flat. But can you really trap a spirit that was never meant to be on this earth in the first place? What do you think?